I know this feels hard. I know it feels like you're not making progress. I know that you had one cookie and now you want to have the whole plate, but there's a big difference between one and the whole plate, and it's okay. Like, sometimes people just need to be told that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is going back. You're going back to the tribe, back to the identified. Why are you mad?
I'm not.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. What are we talking about? You forgot.
Are we recording?
We are.
Okay. We're talking about why change is hard.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why change is hard and what you can do about it to make changes stick. So a little bit of background. We work with a lot of different types of people, clients on nutrition and lifestyle, habit change, the whole spectrum of human beings, people who want to take their performance to the next level. Maybe they're elite athletes, people who have not had any success with their diet and nutrition in the past and are just looking to be healthier, maybe lose some weight, and then literally everybody in between. So we worked with a number of people, enough people where we see patterns of behavior and kind of observe similar challenges from person to person. So we are going to talk about kind of the 5 big ones, or at least 5 of the big ones. This is certainly not going to be an all-encompassing list. But we just kind of wanted to shed some light on what we see and what to do about it. So we'll start off with...
Drum roll, please.
That's excessive. I'll probably cut that out.
Okay, yes.
So, yeah, we'll start with kind of the big one, I think, which is identity. So, if you've ever read any James Clear, you hear him talk about this one a lot, and it's how we identify as human beings. So, this is particularly important when you start to make changes a little bit later in life. I think our behaviors are kind of at our core, and they're a reflection of the people who we are, who we have been. So when we're trying to be someone new, it's hard, right?
Would you say a habit is a behavior? Are they kind of interchangeable terms here?
Yeah, I'd say like a habit is something that you do every single day. It's like a behavior that is...
Or in response to the same... under the same circumstances.
Mm.
It's not necessarily every day, but when faced, it's like a response, a behavior.
Yeah,
You can almost use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
I think, at least for this conversation.
For now we can.
Yeah.
So behaviors and habits will be kind of the same. But yeah, so this one came up for me with someone a couple days ago, and it's, I think, the easiest, probably the most common scenario where we see this come up for people, even people that don't have necessarily a hard time day to day with their nutrition or lifestyle or whatever, is when they get around like family and friends in a social setting. Do you agree with that?
100%.
So like the easiest one to pick out is like is alcohol. So our behaviors and our habits around alcohol, and we get around our friends. So what do you see?
A lot of people, they do great during the week and they kind of adhere to their plan, which oftentimes if they're trying to improve performance, improve body composition or lose weight, doesn't include a whole lot of alcohol. And then they get to the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, and they go out for dinner, they go out to a friend's house, and they drink. And they on Monday, they're not guilty, I think they feel guilty. I don't think that's maybe the best response. It's a response that we try to work through, but they wish they didn't do it. And they wish that it, they had maybe stronger willpower, or I think it's just they end up they put themselves in a position with friends and family that make them feel at odds with their identity and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I think when you're trying to make a shift to being a healthier person or losing weight, just kind of most often when we see this come up, like that shift, it feels like a deviation from your identity. It probably feels like you're an imposter at first. Like, this isn't me, this isn't who I've been in the past. Like, it feels hard and awkward. And you can probably deal with the way that feels when you're, by yourself during the week or just around your close family. And you can rely on the structure of Ivy just got spayed and she's in her shirt. She's being really pouty. You can rely on the structure of like the program that you're on. But when you get away from that, when you get around people who are trying to pressure you into like, oh, just have one, just have two, like, what are you doing? You always drink, like you're no fun. That's when it gets really hard, and you snap back to center on the type of person that you've been historically. And I think that's a really tough thing to battle when the people who are your closest support system aren't supportive of what you're trying to do.
I mean, you can use the same example with food, and like for instance, like fried food, like drinking, fried food, just nutrient devoid foods like cake, treats, sweets. People oftentimes can control what they're eating in their own home, but when they get outside and they're exposed to at a party or at a friend's house to foods that maybe don't align with their goals, and they're used to eating them in the past, it's hard to kind of like wrap not only your head around, but it's like you're kind of at a fork in the road. It's like, well, what path do you take? Do you take this new path that you're forming, or do you kind of keep going down the old path? Is there a path like in the middle, a middle road? Like, where does that?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to learn how to live with the foods that you enjoy and how to enjoy them. But I think kind of at first, like we've talked about this a lot, when you're trying to make a change that's significant, like sometimes you do have to push the balance a little hard in the direction of not having balance for a period of time, just to learn. Like, you have to learn how to be without something before you can learn how to be with it and control it. And I think we also talk a lot about the reason why people, like family and friends, try to pressure us into doing things like drinking or eating or like whatever. Oh, you can have like another slice of cake if you want it, just have it. That. And I think it's what we talk about, right? Is it forces people to examine their own behavior. So when you say to someone, I'm trying to make changes to be a healthier person, and I don't want to, like, I'm not going to drink like I used to, or like I can't have that other slice of cake. Like, it forces people to self-evaluate and to look at themselves and their behavior in a mirror, and they may not like what they see. And so what do they do then? Well, it's easier for them to try to drag you in than it is for them to make the change that you have already committed to making. Like, you're doing the hard thing, and they're trying to do the easy thing, which is to draw you back in to make themselves feel better about the decisions that they've made in the past and the type of person that they are.
Yeah, I ran into this when I was working at the law firm, and drinking was a huge thing. Like, they weren't drinkers, but like Friday night was whiskey, like whiskey afternoon at work. And then like anytime we went out, whether it was, to the box for a hockey game or a concert or a student dinner, really any sort of dinner, like, they indulge in food, and like drinking was a big part of it. I guess work hard, play hard, I don't know. But I don't really drink. Like, I'll have the odd drink, and in most situations, that has never been an issue for me. And I think it's because I surround myself with others who don't really drink or don't see value in drinking. And, there's no right and wrong there. It's just the values you have. And when I would be at these dinners, like, people would look at me, and it was a very uncomfortable situation to have water. And a lot of the times, or even just not eat some of the food that they had. And a lot of the times they would look at me and be like, oh, don't judge me. Or like, why don't you drink? You should just have one glass, like you never drink. Like what's, just tonight, like then we'll have fun. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. Like, I don't care if you drink. Honestly, I think they're judging themselves. Like, they see me and they see that I value health. I would say number one, health and just performance and exercise, and they all knew that. And I think what happened was it made them kind of look at themselves and be like, it makes them look at themselves and see maybe an unhealthy person in that moment.
Yeah.
Or somebody who doesn't value their health or their body weight, or anything that's really associated with drinking or not drinking.
So what do you think is the best thing to do in that scenario for someone who isn't you, and like you say you've never struggled with that, and I don't tend, like, maybe I struggle with it a little bit more, but I also don't really struggle with it much for the same reasons. So what would you say to someone who does struggle with it and is at least somewhat frequently around people who are going to have those things to say?
I think there's what normally happens, and that is you kind of make light of it. You'll say, oh, I have to get up early, or like just, an excuse, or I don't know, like I don't like the taste of it, or I puked last time I drank it, or I don't know. I don't really resort to excuses. Instead, this is what I do, and this is what I recommend my clients to do, is to kind of take a more like serious approach. And that is explain to your friends and your family or your coworkers like why. And you don't need to do it to make them feel bad, and it might make them feel bad anyways, but in a respectful way, just say like, look, I realize I need to make some changes, like I'm trying to lose weight, or I have a competition coming up. That's kind of the one I use, like, and drinking doesn't really align with my goals. And like, you guys can like totally have fun. Like, I really like being around you. Like, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not, and just kind of talk to them respectfully like an adult. And so that next time, like the next Friday, you're not repeating your same old excuse. Oh, well, I didn't fit into my old jeans last night, so I can't have a drink, or I'm so hungover from the night before. Like, otherwise you're just going to keep repeating to yourself, and you're always going to end up in a situation where you have this identity as a drinker, and you're just not drinking tonight. It's like you still have that identity, I'm a drinker, but I'm not drinking. It's like you still have that identity that you're a drinker, and your friends see you as a drinker still because you associate with that. You just haven't changed like your identity, and you haven't told your friends that your identity has changed. And so one way of doing it is say like, I am now a person, like in your own head or to your friends, I am a person who like values my health and fitness, and drinking doesn't align with that. And so it's like you're a person who values health and fitness. A person who values those things maybe doesn't binge drink or drink, and it kind of just it puts a more of a positive spin on things, I think.
Yeah.
And it allows you to kind of wrap your head around it more. It's kind of a more serious way of addressing it with your friends and family. And like changing your identity is kind of the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easier said than done, I guess. But you start by telling yourself, like, you are the type of person who, and eventually you tell yourself that enough times that it just becomes who you are.
Yeah. I think on a in a really like a really simple way to do that is to just watch the way that you phrase sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, instead of saying I can't drink, say I don't drink, for the same reason you were just mentioning. Like, I can't drink is someone who does drink but is restricting. I don't drink is someone who doesn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels different to you when you say it to yourself. It's going to feel different.
Well, and it opens up more of a dialogue with the people that you're around. It's like, I can't drink. It's like, yeah, you can, but I don't drink. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
And so maybe it opens up an opportunity for you to kind of express.
And more understanding all around.
Mm-hmm.
I think if, like, it's easy to make a joke, it's easy to make jokes about it
mm-hmm.
when it comes up, and to make light of it, and That's the easy thing to do for sure, but it doesn't help people understand why you're trying to do things. And so I think it's one part shifting the way you see yourself and trying to make changes that will shift your identity, and then also being serious and trying to help those people around you to understand. Like, eventually maybe you start to make new friends who are more in line with your goals, but you can't make a new family. And like, maybe by leading a healthy lifestyle, you kind of like, you set the example, and so maybe your family will start to make changes because they see you, but maybe not. So it's always like, I think it's a good idea to have a dialogue and like try to help people understand. So, they don't think that you're that weirdo who's only eating one serving of dessert at Thanksgiving, or, not getting shit hammered at Christmas. Like, it's,
that was one time.
um,
I think too, like, you kind of have to make some consolations. Like, sometimes your family is harder to convince. And so, like, for me, I end up, like, at work, it was very hard to just be like, I never drink. So sometimes I would just grab a glass of wine and kind of, sip on it throughout the night.
Spit it back in the glass.
But it's like, if you have, like, some alcohol in your hand, people won't ask. Or you ask for seltzer water in the same glass.
Yeah, like
that they put, like, why do they always give water in this big glass with a straw?
Yeah, it's like put it in a low ball with some crushed ice and fucking
like,
lime.
I don't want party pooper written on my forehead here.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, you can always, like, just pretend, like, a lot of, like, the desire to have a drink is, like, the desire to hold something in front of your body because it makes you feel protected. So just hold a different thing.
Yeah. There's ways to work around it. But I think the main message here is, if you want to make a change, try to kind of go about it in a deeper way, not so superficial.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue into kind of the second reason why change is hard, and that's wrong tribe. So you're with the wrong group of people. Sometimes that's really hard to admit, especially if it's like a group of friends that you've had for a long time. But the reason why, like, it's easy for me to talk about CrossFit because I've been around CrossFit for many years. But it's just it's this extreme exercise program, high intensity interval training. It's super hard. It's something that, like, if not in a group setting, like, not many people are going to go into a Globo gym and do CrossFit style training because it's hard. It looks weird. There's grunting, it's noisy. I don't know. You
can't take your shirt off.
Yeah, like, there's lots of reasons why I don't go to those gyms, but that's most of them. But the reason why, an accountant who has spent the last 8 years sitting at a desk can go into a CrossFit gym and be successful is because they walk into that gym and they see people who are like them. Like, sure, there's the handful of more elite athletes who, might be burning down the workouts. But for the most part, when you go into a CrossFit gym, you see normal people doing really hard workouts. And so it's important when you're trying to make changes, that you're in a group of people who have similar values to you. Like, it's why your tribe is so important. It's super hard. If your core group of friends are people who drink and party and want to stay up, all night and sleep during the day and play video games, it's really hard to break out of that if you're the only one who's trying to make positive changes. And, like, guys, I got to go to bed early and I can't drink because I have to go to CrossFit at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. It makes it really, really difficult if you're surrounded by people who have the opposite kind of lifestyle. And so it's important that you start incorporating maybe one person at a time who shares your values.
Yeah, you don't need to ditch all of your old friends and find new ones. But it is important to find people who support your new goals.
Yeah.
And not just by saying, oh, I support you, by doing it. Like, finding a role model even. Or doing it together.
Yeah.
We've had clients who come to us and aren't from CrossFit, and that's fine. We have a lot of non-CrossFitting clients. And they sometimes struggle more so because they don't have a group that they see on a daily basis who value their health, and doing exercise is a way of showing that you value your health. So they don't have those people, and oftentimes people who do CrossFit also eat fairly healthy. They're health conscious, like all those kind of things are associated. Then you have someone who's trying to change their health, their diet, and their only friends are other university students who are drinking and who eat fast food and maybe just spend all day studying and then go party, or it's very hard to be that person who's like, I need to go to the gym, or I need to eat, I can't eat that, I can't drink. It's like you're constantly going to be fighting. It's just it's almost impossible.
But you find, like, because I used to have that group of friends, like I used to have friends who were more interested in, like, going to bars, drinking. And I'm still friends with them. But then, like, the more I got into CrossFit and the more I got into fitness and health, like, I kind of started to make new friends.
Yeah.
And I liked those people better because they were more in line with where I wanted to go. It's not just where you are. Like, where do you want to go?
Yeah. I think if you actually are determined to make a change for better health, better nutrition, and you actually value it, like you're like, then finding a new tribe will happen. Like you will seek those people out, you will crave those people, and the more that you have it, the more you will
fight to keep it
and fight to get more.
Yeah.
And like, not to say that you won't ever hang out with your old friends. Like you might go out the odd time and party or hang out, whatever, like go for coffee. You can still go for coffee with most people. But like you will start to find that group. And like anybody who's done CrossFit and who really enjoys it, it's kind of that thing like, okay, I really like working out. Like if you find that thing, you're like, I really want to make the change. You just start like gravitating towards other CrossFitters because it's like you've got this thing in common that you really value, and then that's going to lead into other things and you just develop a friendship. I mean, that's what happened to me, and we see that a lot with clients.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's a really powerful thing when you embrace it and you embrace the people, and you just change each other's lives, which is really cool. Like that's like really the best thing. The people the clients who I have who don't do CrossFit, I'm constantly like, you should do CrossFit. Not just because I think it's the best way to train, which I do, but because I know like the support that they don't feel like they have, because almost all of them have the same complaint, and it's like, you can tell that they're just kind of in it alone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you'll find what you need if you just walk through those doors. Like all you have to do is walk through, and what you think you're gonna see, which is a bunch of jacked elite athletes, that's not what you're gonna see. Mm-hmm. You're gonna see people who look just like you.
Yeah.
And who share your stories and who share your hobbies, and like you won't want to leave. So
you can argue the same thing for other exercise routines. I guess like I have a few runners, and I used to be more of a runner myself. My dad is a big runner, and there's a community there too. Like maybe you aren't going for a run group every day, but you identify as a runner.
Yeah. And
maybe you read Runner's Magazine, or you're seeing runners at races, or you start to, and then you meet, maybe randomly at the office, you meet a fellow runner, and then you become friends with that runner, and together it's like you start creating this small tribe, and gradually it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah.
But you have to start small, but yeah, CrossFit is, it's easy. You walk in the door and you'll find somebody.
Yeah, pick your people.
Yeah.
Stick with them. Okay, so the third one we're going to talk about is too much, too fast, which this is one of my favorite ones because I see it crop up a lot. And it's kind of this like 0 to 100 mentality. You see people who haven't had a lot of success with dieting any which way, and they're the type that kind of, they jump into these sort of fad diets, like feet first, like full in. And sometimes that happens with our program, like macro tracking, and they're perfect and then they're not. And it's like it's almost, when I get clients, I would almost prefer sure, it's nice if you can be 100% perfect, but I know that there's a limit to that for almost everybody. And so I would actually prefer someone to be like 90% or like 85%. And the reason for that is longevity. Like if you are just like super rigid and super perfect and everything is just like spot on, like there's gonna come a time where you just kind of snap as a human being.
Unless... Yeah, it's kind of funny. You get a new client and you see perfect macros, and you'd think you'd be like, yes, like this person's gonna just
crush it.
Yeah, but instead, like over time, you learn exactly what you said. It's like,
yeah,
just waiting for it, and then it's like all of a sudden you see no food logs, and then it's like, well, what happened? And it kind of goes back to the all or nothing approach.
Yeah, and it's like there's an easy solution to that, but it's hard, and it's recognizing your own limits as a human being, and knowing, like, being able to look back into your pattern of behavior and know, like, okay, if I do this all or nothing thing, it's gonna fail. But the problem with all or nothing people is they know that, but they don't recognize that, or they have a hard time changing that moving forward. So, what does that mean? Maybe it means that you give yourself a day off tracking, and like not a day off like I'm gonna eat the fridge or go, crush ice cream all day, but just take the day and just eat like a normal human being without logging it or tracking it. And then from a fitness perspective, like same thing, right? If you, a lot of, and I see this most often in like kind of in, I would say, weight loss clients, where they set these really, really lofty fitness goals. Like someone who hasn't run a 5K is going to run a marathon. And that's not to say that you can't do that, because you can absolutely do that. But it's like, it really relies heavily on your ability to set goals up into that point. And the problem with that is if you're, okay, I'm going to run a marathon, but I've never run a 5K before. What happens when you run a 5K or a 10K and it's really hard? You're going to think, oh, I can't, like, how am I ever going to run a marathon? I can't even run a decent 5K or 10K. So it's like, why not first set a goal to run a 5K and then run a 10K and then run what's after a 10K? Half marathon? Then run a half marathon.
Yeah.
And just make it a progression. Like, we see it all, like, everything kind of exists on a progression. Fitness exists on a progression. Nutrition exists on a progression. And then the reason that is because it works really well, and you allow yourself to have success kind of all along the way. And it's a smarter way to set goals.
I mean, that's not to say that you can't have a very lofty goal.
No, definitely not.
I have one client who, he was close to 300 pounds, and he set a goal. I'm sure sitting on the couch, he always says, I went from couch to the Dopey Challenge. He set a goal, he's going to do the Dopey Challenge. And if you don't know what the Dopey Challenge is, it's 4 consecutive days of running. It's a Disney 5K. You do that on Thursday. On Friday, you do 10K. On Saturday, you run a half marathon. And on Sunday, you run a marathon. This guy had never even done any race. He hadn't even run just a marathon. And he had this lofty goal. He's like, I'm going to do the Dopey Challenge. Most people would just sign up, like you said, at least for a marathon. Like, that would be a lofty goal in itself. And he came to me and he told me he was going to do it. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, let's do it. I didn't help him with his running program. He had somebody else doing that for him. And, he didn't go like, he didn't have the Dopey Challenge, like, that's my goal. Like, that was in the back of his head. But his goal was very much like, okay, today I'm doing my training run that is 8 kilometers. And then on Saturday, my training run is 10 kilometers. It's like slowly and surely and slow improvements. And he kind of just trudged along, and sure enough, did it. Like, no problem. But I think you're right. Like, you have a lofty goal, but you need to set those.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like, I think goals really mean something to people. And I mean, they mean something to me too.
External motivation.
Yeah. But I think even beyond external motivation, it's like, a marathon runner is often like the epitome of health. And so why not set a goal to run a marathon? Because if you can run a marathon, you're probably a pretty healthy person. But you're missing, like, that's kind of missing the forest for the trees. The reason why marathon runners are healthy people is because they wake up every single day and they're committed to being a healthy person. And, and they train in a specific way, and that allows them to run marathons. But really, like, this is getting into the weeds of goal setting, but if you make waking up every single day and doing what marathon runners do the goal rather than running a marathon, you're more likely to run that marathon than if you just say, I'm going to run a marathon.
Yeah. A side note, one of our favorite things that we hear is from people walking into the gym and who have no business even saying the CrossFit Games, have the goal of making it to the CrossFit Games. It's
Yes.
like, how will you learn how to snatch 100 pounds first? You know? Like,
Yeah.
where
I mean, I know, that one's
do
kind
people
of...
not know how hard a marathon is or
Yeah.
how hard it is to get to the...
That one hits home, I think, for us, because we've been there and we know what it takes. It's like a little bit of a slap in the face when someone...
A marathon's a marathon. I mean, really, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
But, like, the CrossFit Games, I'm like, dude, really?
Yeah. I don't know that I ever said the words out loud, I want to go to the CrossFit Games.
Oh, I definitely didn't.
No, I didn't. Like, I knew, like, in the back of my head, I was like, that would be kind of, like, that would be cool, and I think I can. I'll just, like, I'll train really hard and I'll see what happens. But I never said it to anybody. I had people say it to me, but I was never that person who was like, I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
This is my year. No, I never do that.
Yeah, me neither.
But, that's us. So I think, I don't know if it ties in well, but then the fourth, kind of the big one, I think, the reason why change is hard and hard to stick to is lack of results. And I think, we as a society have become conditioned to expect fast results, and maybe, I think it has a lot to do with the media and magazines and the way that information is put out there. Magazines sell and news segments sell when they can promise, weight loss in 30 days. How many magazine covers have you seen that are like, lose 20 pounds in 30 days?
Every time I go to the store.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, it's hard to, I just...
you see it on the Today Show.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. Okay, well, talk to me in 6 or 8 weeks and let me know if that worked for you. But I think even people who know that and they can recognize that, yes, that's kind of a trendy diet, or they see it as gimmicky, they have a hard time getting that out of their brain. That, results don't happen quickly.
Well, and they see their friends too. I mean, I have clients who come to me and they're like, oh, my buddy did keto and he lost this much weight in this many days. And I'm like, yeah. And what happens when you go out for dinner? He can't have any bread, he can't do any of that. And if he does, he's going to just gain that weight back.
Yeah.
Do you want to live like that, or do you want to get healthy so you can have the bread and maintain a healthy body weight? But that's not what's presented to us on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How often do you see in a magazine 4-month transformation, 6-month transformation, 1 year? It's nope.
Because that doesn't sell magazines.
Yeah.
How about someone who's been working at it for 5 years?
Yeah.
And is still working at it and grinds every single day.
Yeah.
And they're okay with that because they understand the process. But what if I put a magazine up that was oh, look at this person's transformation that took 7 years.
Yeah.
So
how do you how do you tell somebody about can you just straight up say it takes longer and then that will be enough for them to be okay, I'll commit? Or does it take them experiencing okay, this fad diet didn't work for me. I'm not going to do keto again because it didn't work.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it again, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Do they have to experience it? Do they have to maybe talk to one of their friends? Oh, I worked with Tactic and I lost 40 pounds. It took me 6 months, but I've maintained my weight and I feel great and I'm able to eat any foods that I want. I will shamelessly plug our program.
You should, because it's great.
We need to battle against those fad diets.
Yeah, I think having someone who can point that out and continue to point that out on a regular basis is helps. And if you can get people to stick with something consistently for a couple of months, even a little progress can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Progress in the mirror can be helpful, even if the scale isn't moving.
Or just in their own habit change.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, so now I'm not eating a whole pizza because I know that doesn't align with my goals. That is progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, maybe you messed up 6 days out of 7, but on the 7th day, you did great. You made healthy choices. That's progress. That's probably not going to show on the scale or show in the mirror or show when you put your clothes on, but it's really awesome that you took the first step and like you showed control.
Yeah. I think it's getting people to figure out what appropriate goals are, how long those actually take, and then what kind of effort does that actually take. It is hard work, especially to lose weight. There's a lot of different goals out there. We talk a lot about weight loss because we deal with a lot of people who have weight loss goals.
I'd say that's the number one goal.
Yeah, and people who have weight loss goals kind of demonstrate that historically in the past they've had some difficulty, with their diet and lifestyle. So, like that shows you that it's going to be extra hard to convince that person to be patient.
Yeah.
Maybe they've lost weight in the past and then gained it back. They've lost it and then gained it back. So they know that they have the capacity to lose weight. They don't understand why it doesn't stay off. And the reason why it can be complicated, but probably it just wasn't the right approach or wasn't a sustainable approach. So it's convincing someone that taking the sustainable route, taking the long road, it might take you 1 or 2 or 3 years to get what you want, but once you get it, it will last. And maybe you pick up some other really awesome healthy habits along the way. Maybe you get involved with the gym community. Maybe you start sleeping more. You develop a better relationship with food. All of these things are positive things. They just take time.
Yeah. The one thing that we always recommend to clients, especially clients who are always stepping on the scale, I didn't lose weight. It's like, okay, you don't even, some clients we tell don't even weigh yourself because this is not working. Because they step on the scale every day and they see, oh, I didn't lose 30 pounds, or I'm not closer to losing 30 pounds, or I'm only half a pound close. That took so long. It took so much effort. Instead, you say, all right, you're going to set small goals, and the goal is the process. So it's like, okay, they're daily goals. And the first day is you're going to hit your macros, or you're going to hit your protein. And when you hit your protein, that's an achievement. You've achieved a goal. And those small daily achievements help build motivation. Okay, I got day 1. Now I'm going to go for day 2. And maybe you make it you have a calendar and you do a check mark. Every day I hit my protein, 1 check mark. Last summer I did, I started doing 10,000 steps a day.
God.
And it was too much. But at some point, I think it was around day 14, it was every time you hit 10,000 steps, your watch would buzz and you would get these stars and stuff. And I wanted to get 10,000 steps, that just daily goal of getting 10,000 steps and having a streak and getting those stars and the buzz of my watch was enough to just make me go walking. I couldn't stand the fact that I might lose my streak.
Yeah,
and if you can establish that, if you can establish that with, hitting your macros or eating 800 grams of fruits and vegetables a day, you develop a streak, and then it becomes a habit. It's just it's something you do. I just had to get my 10,000 steps every day.
But I feel it's important to point out that you were doing laps in the hallway at one point.
Yeah, I had to stop that. But I'm just saying that's a good example in showing you develop something and you develop a streak and you small goals.
Yeah, you learn to see results in different ways. Yeah. So the last one we're going to talk about, it's kind of 2, but we'll put them together. It's improper goal setting and fear of failure. So we talk a lot about habit change and goal setting, and I think that fear of failure ties into not setting appropriate goals. But it's also, there's a deeper component to that which we can talk about. But improper goal setting would be something that, in my opinion, isn't actionable. So let's take the example we talked about maybe a little bit ago, which is the goal of, I want to go to the CrossFit Games. There's a fundamental flaw in that goal. What do you think it is? Are you listening to me?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Well, you can't control it? I don't know.
Well,
you have other people that are doing different things. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one. It does depend on other people, that's a whole nother conversation. But you can't just wake up every day and say, I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games. you have to look at like, okay, what do people who go to the CrossFit Games do every day? Well, they probably sleep like 10 hours a night, so that'd be a good place to start. They're on top of their nutrition, and like they train. So really appropriate goals for someone who wants to go to the CrossFit Games. This is assuming that there's no physical deficiency, which there usually is.
Yeah.
Let's just assume that this person is Matt Frazier, but lazy. You know, a good goal would be, I'm going to sleep 10 hours a night. I am going to have all my food prepped, and it's going to be like exactly what I need to eat for the day. And I'm going to do all of my training as best as I can. I'm going to do my best in my training every single day. Like, that's how you go to the CrossFit Games.
I mean, it's no different than a marathon. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't wake up and be like, I'm going to run a marathon. It's like, no, today you're going to do the training that's required, and you're going to eat to fuel that training.
Yeah. So it's understanding when you set a goal, there's usually probably like 3 to 5 actual goals that you need to set.
Just, it's like I said, you don't wake up every day, I'm going to lose 30 pounds.
Yeah. Like,
nobody does that. Like, why do they think it? But they act like that's how it works.
But then every single day they step on the scale and haven't lost 30 pounds, they feel like they failed.
Mm-hmm.
Probably there are a lot of people out there, and I know these people who have the goal of going to the CrossFit Games, and they would fall short at regionals and absolutely lose their shit. And it's like, well, why? Did you try your best? Like, did you have a game plan for each workout that you stuck to? Like, did you do the best that you could? Because if you did and you fell short, there's nothing really to feel bad about. And that's kind of the beauty of making the process of achieving the goal, the real goal, because you can hold your head high at the end of a weekend and say, like, look, I did my absolute best. I'm, proud of that effort, and I'll continue doing it and try again next year or in the new season next month when I go to another sanction event. I miss regionals.
So then are you saying you shouldn't have, like, where does the big goal come in then?
I think the big goal, like, it can provide motivation. Like, a big external goal can provide the motivation to start doing something. But you have to be able to see the results of the process on a more daily basis or like a weekly basis. If you don't, you'll just like you'll just get demotivated unless you're an extremely intrinsically motivated person like you are. Like you.
So maybe one way of putting that is saying, like, okay, this big goal, there's no time limit. Like, maybe saying I want to go to the CrossFit Games, like, I'm going to do everything, like, instead it's like, my goal is to do everything I can do to make it to the CrossFit Games, instead of being like, I'm going to make it to the CrossFit Games next year, and I'm going to do everything that I can do. So, like, at the end of the year, when you don't make it to the CrossFit Games, you're still a failure, even though you performed to your potential and you did everything that you should do. But maybe at the end of the year, you didn't make it to the CrossFit Games. If there is no time limit, you can say, I worked really hard this year, I'm this much closer.
Yeah.
I'm going to try again next year.
I learned things about myself.
It's not I haven't achieved my goal. It's I haven't achieved my goal yet. And maybe that's a way to, like, reframe it.
Yeah. I like that word, yet.
And then there's those people who just never will make it to the CrossFit Games, and they'll never realize that, and they just live in a world of delusion, and they're hopeless.
They try. That's okay. Hopefully they have a good time.
But yeah, they do.
And then, so the where does the fear of failure come in? I think, like,
I mean, that kind of goes back. It kind of blankets all of that stuff, or underlies all of that stuff. Like, if you almost have to work to get rid of that fear. I mean, not everybody, I would say there are outliers, but a lot of people fear failure. Yeah. And if you kind of set yourself up where you can control, and you set your goals small enough that they're achievable, and you start out small and you achieve them slowly and gradually, and you build over time, like, you won't fail. Like,
because you can't.
You can't. And, like, you can, but you have to understand that, like, that failure is due to your lack of effort. I don't know
that's lack of effort. Like, I don't know that there's some people who don't qualify for the games, not for lack of effort. It's just not like, it's not their year. It's not the right circumstance, the right events. So I think it's like, it's understanding that maybe that failure is actually okay. And that like the fact that you might not achieve your goal doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and try to achieve your goal. You shouldn't give 100% to what you're doing just because you think there's a possibility that it might not work out. I think that, you know, if people live their lives that way, there would be no like elite athletes. There'd be no successful business people.
So what about on a weight loss level where you have somebody who feels like they self-sabotage? And it's like, okay, I've been doing great for 7 days, but like, I don't think this is going to work. Like, I didn't lose weight, or I only lost a pound. Like, this isn't going to work. I'm never going to be skinny. Skinny, in their mind, skinny is different for everybody, but I'm never going to be skinny. I need to eat a whole cake.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that? How does that work? Like, is that fear of failure?
I think that's fear of failure in like a sort of a self-sabotaging way. And that's probably, that goes back to like lack of results, the way they identify. I think a lot of like, you know, if you are someone who does need to lose weight and it's like maybe you've identified that way for so long, you don't know how to be anything else. And so there's a level of comfort that comes with that. And you know, change is hard. Mm-hmm. And so people will self-sabotage to keep from making those changes.
Or maybe they think if it's not sustainable, or they set themselves up for something that's not sustainable and they don't stick with it for long enough to teach themselves that it is sustainable, then they know maybe they foresee themselves down the line failing.
So why not fail right now?
Yeah, and it just like prevents maybe some embarrassment. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I think that having the right people around you at that moment is important. And having somebody that you can reach out to and talk to and understand, like,
you're going to be mad at me.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
And I'm like, no, if anything, like, I'm glad that you had, you know, that extra ice cream, and it only, you know, it was 100 extra calories, but like, you should be including ice cream, and like, you don't do it all the time. And like, progress, like perfection, like, I don't like perfection.
It's breakable.
It's, people just, it crumbles under you in an instant. And if people learn that, like, it's okay with me, it's okay with them, you know, to not be perfect, and progress is what we're looking for, like, I think that kind of accompanies all of this stuff. Like,
yeah,
if you're not a marathon runner now, you might be eventually. Like, but you have to make it work with your life and kind of progress towards it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like fear of failure is fear of change. It's the reason why it's so hard to even make changes, and even harder to get those changes to stick. But it's not like I've seen people that have stuck with it for years. I have clients that I've had for years, and like their lives are totally different. And so I see it work, and you see it work. And I know, like, all I want to say to people a lot of times is like, just keep going, because I know how this ends if you stick with it. And it ends with you either getting what you want, or learning that what you thought you wanted isn't actually what you wanted, and finding something that's even better. Mm-hmm. Which is honestly like the best.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's how I feel about it anyways. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think just to close up all of these, 5 reasons why change is hard, they all kind of work together. You can't really take one and over the other. I mean, they kind of, like work together. I don't know really how else to put it.
They build, and everything's intertwined.
Yeah.
And you think you address one thing, and then something else comes up. Like maybe you've got your identity squared away, but your friends suck, or like you have really great friends, but you bit off more than you can chew with a goal. They're too much too fast. Like it's all a learning process.
Yeah,
like,
and it's even this. Like we talk about perfection with macros or what training or whatever. Like this is never going to be perfect. Like life is messy, and like you might have that friend who's trying to sabotage you all the time, or that family member, who's super close with you and like always trying to get you to eat because they like eating, whatever. Like you're always going to be battling stuff. It's never going to be an ideal situation. But that doesn't mean it's not worth, trying to make it as conducive as possible to your goals.
Yeah.
Even small changes can make a big difference over time. Very small changes.
Yeah.
So
that's about it for today. We're going to wrap it up. We obviously help a lot of people, so if this hits home with you and you feel like you need help on that front, please reach out, send us a message. We'll give you whatever feedback we can, point you in a direction, and we can definitely help you out with tactic too if you feel like you need that. So all right, see ya.